The summons. The Obsidian Conclave met once every solar cycle in a chamber carved from a neutron star fragment, a room that had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations for 3 million years. Ambassador Cale Thorne stood before its entrance, adjusting the collar of his simple gray diplomatic suit, knowing he was about to walk into what might be humanity's final judgment. "You don't have to do this alone," his aide Maya Reeves whispered beside him. Her dark eyes reflected the swirling cosmic vista visible through the station's transparent walls. Cale smiled grimly. "Yes, I do." They called for Earth's representative, not its delegation. The doors irised open, revealing a semicircular amphitheater where 9 alien species sat in judgment. Each represented civilizations that had mastered interstellar travel before humans had discovered fire. The Korathi, crystalline beings who communicated through light harmonics. The Velkrin, 6-armed philosophers whose thoughts moved faster than quantum processors. The Then Collective, a hive mind spanning 17 planets. At the chamber's apex sat High Arbiter Zexilian, a being of pure energy contained within an ornate magnetic field array. Its voice resonated through every atom in the room. "Ambassador Cale Thorne of Earth. You stand accused on behalf of your species. How do you answer?" Cale walked to the speaker's platform, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. "I answer that I'm here to listen to the charges, Arbiter. But I won't apologize for my species' existence." A ripple of shock pulsed through the assembly. The Velkrin ambassador, Torquus the Ancient, leaned forward with all 6 arms gesturing disapproval. "Such arrogance. This is precisely why we debate the human question." "The human question?" Cale kept his voice level, though his heart hammered. "You make us sound like a problem requiring a solution. Are you not?" This came from Ambassador Sorel of the Lumina Sovereignty, her bioluminescent skin flashing angry crimson. "In 200 years since first contact, humanity has violated 17 interspecies protocols, colonized 12 contested systems, and now, this." She gestured, and a holographic display materialized in the chamber's center. It showed the Kepler Rim, a region of space humanity had been explicitly forbidden from entering. Except now, a human mining operation sprawled across 3 asteroid belts, extracting rare elements at an unprecedented rate. "We were starving," Cale said quietly. "Our colony ships in the Andrus sector encountered a viral plague. We needed Iridium-7 for the cure. The Kepler Rim was the only source within range." "The Kepler Rim," intoned Arbiter Zexilian, "was designated as protected territory under the Covenant of Stars, an agreement your predecessor signed 143 years ago. An agreement made when we were desperate for acceptance into galactic society," Cale countered. "We didn't understand the full implications. We didn't know that protected territory meant letting 30 million colonists die while we filed proper requests through bureaucratic channels that would take decades to process." Torquus's skin rippled with patterns that Cale's translator rendered as disdainful laughter. "Ignorance is not innocence, human. Every species joining the conclave must sacrifice immediate gratification for long-term stability." The Then waited 4 generations before settling their first extrasolar world. The Korathi endured a population bottleneck that reduced their numbers by 70% rather than expand into forbidden zones. "Then perhaps," Cale said, his voice hardening, "the system is designed by species who have already secured their resources to prevent newcomers from achieving the same security." The chamber erupted. Multiple ambassadors spoke simultaneously, their voices clashing in a cacophony of outrage. Arbiter Zexilian pulsed with brilliant light, demanding silence. "You dare accuse this council of prejudice?" Sorel's glow had shifted to ultraviolet, a sign of genuine anger among her people. "I accuse this council of forgetting what desperation feels like," Cale replied. "Every species here has had centuries or millennia to establish themselves among the stars. Humanity has had 2 centuries. We're still learning, still growing, still making mistakes. But we're also still dying when preventable disasters strike and the bureaucracy moves slower than our lifespans allow." A new voice entered the discussion, soft, almost apologetic. Ambassador Quinn of the Whisper Confederacy, a species of telepathic beings who rarely spoke aloud, materialized its thoughts into words. "The young ambassador makes a point worth considering. We measure time in epochs. Humans measure it in generations. To them, delay equals death. Which is precisely why they're dangerous," Torquus snapped. "They cannot think beyond immediate survival. They lack the patience for true civilization." Cale felt something inside him snap. For 200 years, humanity had bent, compromised, apologized, and diminished itself trying to fit into a galactic order that had been established without them. He thought of Maya waiting outside, of the billions back on Earth watching this broadcast, of the children in the Andrus sector who would live because humanity had dared to break a rule. Then perhaps, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the ancient chamber, it's time we discussed what true civilization actually means. Because from where I stand, a civilization that would let millions die to preserve territorial treaties and processing protocols isn't civilized, it's calcified. The Arbiter's energy field crackled with intensity. Bold words, Ambassador Thorne. This council will hear your defense. But know this, we have the power to quarantine your entire species to your home system. Choose your next words carefully. Kale straightened his shoulders. Then let's begin. The prosecution. High Arbiter's exilion dimmed its radiance to a pulsing amber, the color of judicial proceedings. Ambassador Torquus the Ancient, you have petitioned this council to address the human question. Present your case. The Velcrin rose, all 6 arms moving in a choreographed pattern that his species used to emphasize sincerity. Torquus had served on the conclave for 4,000 years, longer than human recorded history. When he spoke, it was with the weight of eons. Honored Arbiter, esteemed colleagues, I bring before you not mere accusations but a pattern. A pattern that threatens the very foundation of peaceful coexistence we have built over millions of years. Holographic displays erupted throughout the chamber, each showing a different human transgression. Kale recognized many of them. Some he'd helped negotiate resolutions for, others he'd inherited as ongoing diplomatic disasters. Exhibit 1, the Tau Ceti Incident. 27 years ago, human explorers encountered the Singing Gardens, a botanical preserve maintained by the Korathi for 70,000 years. Within 6 months, human scientists had introduced 17 foreign species, disrupting evolutionary patterns that predated their entire civilization. A Korathi ambassador chimed in, their crystalline body resonating with melancholy tones. The gardens sang in perfect harmony for millennia. Now they scream discord. Our cultural heritage, damaged beyond repair by human curiosity. Kale wanted to argue to explain that those scientists hadn't known, that they'd been trying to solve Earth's food crisis by studying alien agriculture. But Torquus was already moving on. Exhibit 2, the Proxima Trade Wars. Humans undercut established trading agreements by offering manufactured goods at 40% below standard rates. 7 smaller civilizations collapsed economically. The Wanderer clans lost their entire merchant fleet to bankruptcy. We were competing, Kale interjected. Free market principles. Free market. Sorel's luminescence flared. You flooded markets with products created by automated systems, undercutting species who relied on traditional craftsmanship passed down through generations. You didn't compete, you annihilated livelihoods. Torquus gestured to another display. Exhibit 3, Military Expansion. In 200 years, humanity has constructed 47 warships. The Conclave Treaty limits new member species to 12 defensive vessels during their first 5 centuries. Because we've been attacked. Kale's voice rose despite his efforts to remain calm. The Krell Raiders hit our colonies 6 times. The Void Reapers twice. We needed to defend ourselves. From threats you created through your own aggressive expansion, Torquus countered smoothly. The Krell raid colonies that encroach on their traditional hunting grounds. You built settlements in those grounds despite our warnings. A new voice joined the prosecution. Ambassador Drew Math of the Stone Concordat, a species of silicon-based beings who measured decisions in centuries. His words came slowly, each one carved with deliberation. The human problem is speed. They evolve too fast, change too quickly. We built this council on predictability, on species that transform over millennia, not decades. Exactly, Torquus agreed. 200 years ago, humans had primitive rockets. Today they have quantum drives. 200 years ago, they fought each other with chemical explosives. Today they possess weapons that could crack planets. This acceleration is unprecedented and terrifying. Quinn of the Whisper Confederacy projected thoughtful concern into the chamber. Yet isn't adaptation a sign of vitality? Perhaps we older species have something to learn from human dynamism. Or perhaps, Torquus shot back, we're witnessing a species that will burn brightly and consume everything around it before flaming out. Tell me, Ambassador Thorne, what will humans do in another 200 years? Another 1,000? Will any of us be safe when your species reaches its full potential? The question hung in the air like a charged particle. Kale felt the weight of it, not just the political weight, but the genuine fear underlying Torquis's words. These ancient species looked at humanity and saw something they'd never encountered. A civilization that evolved faster than their diplomatic frameworks could process. "I'll tell you what we'll do," Kale said quietly. "We'll keep surviving. We'll keep adapting. We'll keep making mistakes and learning from them, faster than you're comfortable with perhaps. But we'll also keep contributing." In 200 years, humans have introduced 47 breakthrough technologies that are now used across the conclave. We've mediated 13 interspecies conflicts. We've saved the Keth from extinction by cracking the plague that was decimating their population. Exceptions, Torquis dismissed. Moments of usefulness that don't outweigh the chaos you generate. Sorel stood, her bioluminescence pulsing in prosecutorial fervor. Let me add to Torquis's exhibits. Last year, a human colony on Barnard's star began terraforming operations without proper authorization. They released atmospheric processors that would have rendered the planet's native microbiome extinct within a decade. Only the conclave's intervention stopped an ecological catastrophe. The colony commander was prosecuted under Earth law, Kale countered. We policed ourselves. After we caught you, Sorel retorted. How many other operations proceed unnoticed? How many rules do you break when you think we're not watching? Arbiter Zexilian pulsed. Ambassador Thorne, the prosecution paints a clear picture. Humanity as a chaos agent, disrupting galactic order through ignorance, speed, and arrogance. Before we proceed to your defense, I must ask directly, can you offer this council any assurance that humanity can change? That you can learn to operate within our frameworks? Kale looked at each ambassador in turn. He saw fear, frustration, and in a few genuine curiosity about what he might say. This was the moment that would define not just the trial, but humanity's future among the stars. No, he said simply. I can't promise we'll change to fit your frameworks. But I can promise we'll keep trying to build something better, together. The human defense. Silence filled the obsidian conclave chamber. Kale's refusal to promise conformity rippled through the assembly like a shockwave. Several ambassadors began speaking at once, but Arbiter Zexilian's energy field flared, demanding order. Ambassador Thorne, the Arbiter's voice resonated with what might have been curiosity. You understand that defiance is not a defense strategy? It's not defiance, Kale replied, stepping forward on the speaker's platform. It's honesty. You've asked if humanity can change to fit frameworks designed millions of years before we existed. The truth? We've been trying for 2 centuries and it's killing us. He gestured, and his own holographic displays activated, images he'd spent weeks preparing with Maya and the entire Earth diplomatic corps. You speak of our violations, our speed, our chaos. Let me speak of our desperation. The first image showed a human colony world, New Brasilia. This settlement was established 40 years ago under full conclave approval. Population, 4 million. They followed every protocol, every guideline. When a solar flare storm damaged their magnetic shield generators, they filed an emergency request for replacement parts. The image shifted to show a document trail, requests, forms, committee reviews, all stamped with various conclave bureaucratic seals. The approval process took 7 months. By month 4, radiation sickness had killed 800,000 people. By month 7, when the parts finally arrived, we'd lost almost 2 million. We lost them because the Conclave Supply Chain Prioritization Committee meets quarterly, and our emergency didn't fall into the immediate existential threat category. Quinn's telepathic voice whispered through the chamber. We grieve for those losses, Ambassador. But proper procedures exist to prevent favoritism and... Prevent favoritism? Kale's voice cracked. We're talking about children dying of radiation poisoning while committee members debate procedural minutiae. This isn't about favoritism, it's about the fundamental disconnect between how you measure time and how we experience it. He pulled up another display. The Kepler rim violation that Torquis mentioned? The iridium-7 we extracted illegally? Our request to mine there was filed 3 years before the plague hit Andrus sector. 3 years. It's still in preliminary review. The plague killed 30,000 people in 6 weeks. We had a choice. Watch them die while waiting for approval that might come in a decade or break a law to save lives. We chose lives. Drew Math of the Stone Concordat spoke with his characteristic slowness. You speak as if your urgency justifies lawlessness. It does not. Patience is the foundation of civilization. Patience is a luxury of species that have already secured their survival, Kale countered. The then collective waited 4 generations before settling their first extrasolar world. Torquus mentioned that as a virtue. But the then lived for 800 years. For then generations is 3,000 years of human time. You're asking us to show restraint measured in timescales that encompass our entire recorded history. He advanced toward the center of the chamber, his passion building. Let's talk about the singing gardens. Yes, our scientists made mistakes. But do you know why they were there? Earth's agricultural systems were failing. Climate restoration was incomplete. We needed to understand how the Korathi cultivated plants in low-nitrogen environments. We weren't trying to destroy your heritage, we were trying to prevent famine. The Korathi ambassador chimed in somber tones. Intention does not undo harm, human. No, it doesn't, Kale agreed. And we've spent 20 years helping to restore those gardens. Human botanists working alongside Korathi gardeners, learning your methods, applying our technology to heal what we damaged. That's what humanity does. We break things, yes, but we also fix them. We learn. Faster than you're comfortable with, perhaps, but we do learn. Sorel's luminescence shifted to skeptical yellow. And the Proxima trade wars? How do you justify economic destruction? We don't, Kale said bluntly. We made a mistake. We thought we were competing fairly. We didn't understand that our manufacturing capacity, born from centuries of resource scarcity on Earth, would be devastating to species whose economies developed under different pressures. When we realized the damage, we implemented the Proxima Accords ourselves. We limited our own exports, established fair trade minimums, and created a relief fund for affected civilizations. We paid reparations totaling 17 trillion credits. He paused, letting that sink in. We didn't wait for the conclave to punish us. We punished ourselves because we recognized the harm we'd caused. That's not the behavior of a chaotic, irredeemable species. That's the behavior of a species learning to be better. Torquus's 6 arms moved in a pattern of dismissal. Cherry-picked examples of correction after catastrophe. The pattern remains: humans act first, consider consequences later. Because we don't have the luxury of your timescales. Kale's frustration finally broke through. A Velcrin can contemplate a decision for a century. Humans die after 80 years on average. We have to act on the timescales we have. But here's what you're missing, Torquus. Our speed isn't just a liability. It's also our greatest gift to this council. He gestured to a new display. The Keth plague you mentioned, we cured it in 9 months. Your combined scientific institutes had been studying it for 40 years. The Crimson Drift anomaly that was consuming star systems in the outer reach? Human physicists solved it in 3 years. The conclave had spent 2 centuries on that problem. You compare speed of discovery to wisdom of implementation, Drew Math rumbled. They are not the same. They're connected, Kale argued. Our ability to innovate rapidly means we can respond to crises that threaten all species, not just humans. Yes, we're young. Yes, we're chaotic. But we're also vital. We bring energy to a council that's been running on the same principles for so long that you've forgotten how to adapt. The chamber erupted in argument. Kale stood in the center of the storm he'd created, knowing he'd gambled everything on reframing humanity's chaos as an asset rather than a liability. The revelation. Arbiter Zexilian's energy field exploded into brilliant white light, silencing the chamber instantly. The ancient being's voice carried an edge Kale had never heard before, something that might have been anger or might have been fascination. Enough. Ambassador Thorne, you speak of humanity as if you are an asset to civilizations that predate your species by millions of years. This borders on arrogance that even we find remarkable. Then let me be clear about what I'm actually saying, Kale replied. I'm not claiming we're superior. I'm claiming we're necessary. And I can prove it. He activated a secure file that Maya had spent 3 months compiling, cross-referencing conclave archives with human intelligence data. What appeared in the holographic display made several ambassadors lean forward with sudden interest. For the past 50 years, the conclave has been facing a crisis you haven't publicly acknowledged. Energy consumption across all member civilizations has increased by 47%. Resource extraction has peaked on 73% of established mining operations. And population growth projections show that within 200 years, demand will exceed supply by catastrophic margins. Sorel's glow dimmed slightly, a tell that Kale had struck close to a truth. These projections are classified conclave business. How did you? We're good at gathering information, Kale interrupted. Another benefit of our speed. But here's the relevant part. The conclave's solution to this crisis has been rationing, controlled population limits, and restricted expansion into new territories. You're managing decline instead of pursuing growth. Because growth, Torquist said coldly, is what leads to the chaos you represent. Uncontrolled expansion, resource wars, ecological disaster. We learned these lessons millions of years ago. No, Kale countered, you learned to be afraid of growth. And that fear is calcifying you. He pulled up comparative data. In the past century, the Conclave has approved 7 new colony worlds. Humanity alone has proposed 34, and we've been rejected on all but 3. Why? Drewmath responded in his measured cadence. Because those worlds fell within protected zones, or violated expansion protocols, designed to prevent conflict. Designed to prevent change, Kale corrected. Every world we proposed had viable solutions to your stated concerns. Alternative migration routes to avoid protected zones. Resource-sharing agreements with neighboring species. But the real issue wasn't our proposals, it was that we were proposing at all. You've created a system where the established powers stay established and newcomers stay controlled. Quinn's telepathic voice carried genuine concern. These are serious accusations, Ambassador. You're suggesting the Conclave operates as an oligarchy rather than a cooperative council. I'm suggesting the Conclave has forgotten how to grow, Kale said more gently. Not because you're malicious but because you're old. When was the last time a truly revolutionary idea was implemented here? When was the last time someone challenged the fundamental assumptions of how galactic civilization operates? He gestured to the ancient chamber around them. This room is carved from a neutron star fragment, a magnificent achievement from an era when your species were young and bold. But now, you meet here to manage existing systems, not to imagine new ones. You've traded innovation for stability. Stability, Torquist said harshly, prevents wars that could sterilize entire sectors. Stability keeps the peace between species with enough firepower to shatter planets. Your chaos threatens that peace. Our chaos, Kale replied, might be the only thing that can save you from stagnation. He activated another file, this one showing human technological contributions over the past 2 centuries. The quantum relay network that now connects all Conclave worlds? Human invention. The medical nanites that have extended average lifespan across 17 species? Human biotech. The gravitational lensing technique that allows FTL communication? Developed by a human physicist who broke about a dozen research protocols to test an impossible theory. The displays showed invention after invention, each one initially rejected by Conclave review boards as too risky, too untested, too fast, before eventually being adopted when humans proved they worked. We don't just break rules randomly, Kale continued. We break rules that need to be broken. We try things that seem impossible. And yes, we fail sometimes. But we also succeed in ways that benefit everyone, not just humanity. Ambassador Drumatha's silicon form vibrated with what his species expressed as deep contemplation. You make a compelling case for managed chaos. But management implies control. Can humans be controlled? The wrong question, Kale said immediately. Can humans be partnered with? Can we work alongside your wisdom to create something neither of us could achieve alone? That's what you should be asking. Sorel's luminescence flickered through several colors, her species equivalent of pacing while thinking. Even if we accepted your premise, that human innovation has value, how do we address the fundamental problem? Your speed makes you unpredictable. Today's partnership could become tomorrow's catastrophe. Kale had been waiting for this opening. Then let's talk about what happened 3 months ago. An event that I think changes everything about this discussion. He activated a final display, this one showing a region of space beyond Conclave territory, the void expanse where no member species had dared to venture. And there, recorded by long-range human probes, was something that made every ambassador in the chamber fall silent. A fleet. Massive, alien, and utterly unknown. Thousands of ships moving in formation heading toward Conclave space. We detected them first because we had probes where you didn't. In forbidden space we explored without permission, Kale said quietly. They'll reach Conclave borders in approximately 18 months. And based on their trajectory and the debris fields we found in their wake, they're not coming in peace. Arbiter Zexilion's energy field pulsed with urgent light. Why are we only learning of this now? Because I needed you to understand what humanity brings to this council before I revealed the stakes, Kale replied. You're facing an existential threat that your frameworks aren't designed to handle. You'll need to innovate, adapt, and move faster than you ever have before. He met the gaze of each ambassador in turn. You'll need us. The fracture. The chamber exploded into chaos. Multiple ambassadors spoke simultaneously, their voices clashing in a cacophony of panic, outrage, and disbelief. Arbiter Zexilian's energy field flared repeatedly, each pulse demanding order that wouldn't come. Finally, Torquis's voice cut through the noise, amplified by his translator to override all other signals. This is a manipulation. A human deception designed to make yourselves indispensable through fear. We've transmitted all our probe data to your military intelligence division, Kale replied calmly. Every reading, every analysis, every projection. Your own scientists can verify it. In fact, they probably already have. Ask Arbiter Zexilian if Conclave Command has been investigating unusual sensor readings in the void expanse for the past 4 months. The Arbiter's silence was answer enough. Several ambassadors turned their attention to the ancient being, demands for explanation forming on multiple lips simultaneously. It is true, Zexilian finally admitted, its energy field dimming to a troubled purple. We detected anomalies 16 weeks ago. Our investigation was ongoing. We had hoped to present conclusive findings to the Council once we had certainty. 16 weeks, Sorel said, her bioluminescence flashing angry red. You've known about a potential invasion for 16 weeks and said nothing? We detected anomalies, the Arbiter corrected. Not confirmed threats. The Conclave does not raise alarms without certainty. The human data, however, provides far more detail than our long-range sensors could achieve. Because we put probes where you forbade us to go, Kale said. Because we broke your rules about the void expanse. If we hadn't, you'd have perhaps 6 months less warning than you have now. Maybe less. Quinn's telepathic presence radiated troubled thoughts throughout the chamber. The ambassador makes a disturbing point. Our adherence to established protocols may have left us vulnerable to external threats we weren't designed to anticipate. Or, Torquis countered, his 6 arms gesturing forcefully, the humans created this threat themselves. Perhaps their unauthorized expansion provoked these unknown aliens. Perhaps we face invasion because humanity couldn't follow simple restrictions. Except these ships show technology signatures completely unlike anything in known space, Kale shot back. Our xenotechnology experts, and yes, we have our own now, not just yours, estimate this civilization is at least as old as the Conclave. They were coming regardless of what we did. We just happened to see them first. Drumath rumbled his slow, measured thoughts. If true, this changes everything. The question becomes, not whether humans are disruptive, but whether their disruption is what we need. Absolutely not. Ambassador Vokresh of the Iron Dominion spoke for the first time, his metallic voice clanging like struck shields. The Dominion represented the Conclave's military traditions, species that had fought and bled in ancient wars before peace treaties had been established. We do not embrace chaos because a threat appears. We strengthen our discipline, refine our strategies, and meet danger with unified purpose. Unified purpose is exactly what I'm proposing, Kale said. But unified doesn't mean uniform. You have military experience, tactical knowledge, and coordination that humanity lacks. We have adaptability, innovation speed, and unconventional thinking that you need. Together we become dependent on a species we cannot trust, Vokresh interrupted. This is the oldest military trap in existence, the desperate alliance that empowers tomorrow's enemy. If we integrate human chaos into our defense strategies, we create a vulnerability in the heart of our civilization. The argument spiraled outward from there. The chamber divided into factions. Some ambassadors saw the logic in Kale's position, that an unprecedented threat required unprecedented response. Others doubled down on their fear of human unpredictability, arguing that the invasion fleet, if real, should be met with traditional Conclave military doctrine refined over millions of years. Sorel stood, her glow shifting to diplomatic white, a formal request for attention. I propose we table the human question temporarily. If this threat is real and imminent, we need to focus on defense, not on whether to punish or embrace humanity. The two cannot be separated, Torquis argued. How we respond to this threat depends entirely on who we allow to be part of that response. If we grant humans a seat at the strategic table, we legitimize their violations and encourage future chaos. If we exclude them, Quinn projected, we lose access to their speed of innovation exactly when we might need it most. Kale watched the council tear itself apart, realizing with a sinking feeling that he might have miscalculated. He'd thought revealing the invasion would unite the Conclave, would show them that their internal conflicts were petty compared to external threats. Instead, he'd given them a new battleground for the same old arguments. Enough, Arbiter Zexilian commanded, its voice carrying the weight of authority that had held the conclave together for eons. This debate will not be resolved today. I'm calling for a recess. Each delegation will consult with their home governments. We will reconvene in 48 hours with formal proposals for both the human question and the approaching threat. 48 hours? Cale couldn't help himself. With respect, Arbiter, that fleet is 18 months away. Every day we delay in preparing is a day we ensure our response is correct rather than hasty, Zexilian finished. You speak of human speed as an asset, Ambassador Thorne. Learn to value our deliberation. Dismissed. The ambassadors began filing out, some in angry clusters, others alone with their thoughts. Cale stood on the speaker's platform, watching humanity's future slip through his fingers like water. Maya appeared at his elbow, having entered during the chaos. You gave them everything, she whispered. The evidence, the threat, the opportunity. If they still reject us, then we face that fleet alone, Cale said quietly. And so do they. Across the chamber, Torquist the Ancient watched Cale with an expression the human couldn't read. After 4,000 years of service, the Velcrin had seen countless species come before the conclave. He wondered if he was watching humanity's last chance slip away, or the beginning of something that would transform galactic civilization forever. The backroom. Cale paced the small observation deck adjacent to the conclave chamber, watching ships move through the station's traffic patterns. Freighters, diplomatic vessels, patrol craft, all following routes established thousands of years ago, all moving with the predictable precision of a clockwork universe. Soon that precision might not matter. Stop spiraling, Maya said from where she sat reviewing data on her tablet. You did what you came to do. Now we wait. For 48 hours while they debate whether to trust us. Cale's frustration leaked into his voice. That fleet doesn't care about their deliberation schedules. A chime indicated someone requesting entry. Maya checked the security feed and her eyebrows rose. It's Ambassador Quinn. Alone. The Whisper Confederacy representative materialized through the door, literally as their species existed partially out of phase with normal matter. Quinn's form stabilized into something approximately humanoid, though their edges remained soft and uncertain. Ambassador Thorne Aid Reeves. I hope I'm not intruding. Not at all, Cale said, gesturing to a seat that Quinn politely ignored, choosing instead to hover in a meditative position. Though I'm surprised to see you. Private meetings between ambassadors during recess aren't exactly protocol. No, Quinn agreed, their telepathic voice carrying a hint of amusement. They're not. Which is precisely why several of us are taking them. Cale and Maya exchanged glances. Several? The council is more divided than you saw in the chamber, Quinn explained. Publicly, most ambassadors must maintain the positions their governments demand. Privately, many are questioning those positions. The revelation of the approaching fleet has accelerated certain doubts that were already present. Maya leaned forward. What kind of doubts? About whether the conclave's current form serves its original purpose. Quinn's presence radiated complex emotions, concern, hope, uncertainty all woven together. The conclave was founded after the Convergence Wars, a period of such devastating conflict that it nearly extinguished all sentient life in this region of space. Our founders created a system designed to prevent such wars from ever happening again. Through stability, predictability, and careful control of expansion, Cale said. Exactly. And for millions of years it worked. But now, Quinn gestured toward the viewport, toward the vast darkness beyond. Now we face a threat from outside our established order. And some of us wonder if our peace through stability has made us brittle. Capable of preventing internal conflicts, but vulnerable to external ones. Cale felt a spark of hope ignite. How many think this way? 4 ambassadors are certain, 3 are wavering, and 1 might be persuaded with the right argument, Quinn said. That's 8 potential votes out of 17 for integrating humanity more fully into conclave defense planning. 8 isn't enough for a majority, Maya noted. No, but it's enough to prevent your species from being quarantined or sanctioned, Quinn replied. The real question is whether we can shift the remaining votes before the session reconvenes. What would that take? Cale asked. Before Quinn could answer, another chime sounded. This time, 3 ambassadors stood outside. Drew Math of the Stone Concordat, Ambassador Elwes of the Meridian Assembly, and surprisingly, Commander Vokresh of the Iron Dominion. It seems, Quinn projected with satisfaction, the backroom negotiations are already underway. The delegation entered, and Cale realized he was witnessing something rare, ambassadors from fundamentally different philosophical camps, meeting in secret to find common ground. Drumath moved with characteristic slowness, Elwes's aquatic form shimmered in its containment field, and Vokresh's metallic features reflected the starlight from the viewport. Ambassador Thorn, Vokresh said without preamble. I spoke against you in the chamber. I still believe human chaos is dangerous. But I'm also a military realist. If this invasion fleet is as powerful as your data suggests, we'll need every advantage, including your chaos. I'm listening, Kale said carefully. Drumatha's deep rumble filled the room. A proposal emerges. Not to resolve the human question, but to postpone it. Grant humanity temporary emergency status. Full access to defense planning. Full integration with conclave military. But limited duration. How limited? Maya asked. Until the threat is resolved, Elwes said, her voice burbling through the translator. One crisis, one partnership. Afterward, the human question returns to formal judgment. Kale considered this. It wasn't everything, it was actually less than he'd hoped for, but it was a chance. A way to prove humanity's value in the clearest possible terms. There's a catch, Vokresh added. For this to work, we need Torquist to support it. He's the linchpin. 6 ambassadors follow his lead without question. If he agrees to temporary integration, we can pass it. Torquist hates us, Kale said bluntly. He's been arguing for our quarantine for decades. He's been arguing for stability, Quinn corrected. And right now, the most stable path forward might be the one that gives the Conclave the best chance of survival. That's the argument we need to make to him. Maya pulled up a personnel file. Torquist has been on the Conclave for 4,000 years. He's seen species rise and fall. What would convince someone with that much experience that humanity is different? Drumatha's silicon form vibrated thoughtfully. Not that you are different, that you are necessary. And not forever, just now. Can you get me a meeting with him? Kale asked. Private, unofficial. Just 2 ambassadors talking. The other representatives exchanged glances, or the equivalent for their various sensory modalities. Finally, Vokresh nodded. I can arrange it. But Thorn? If you fail, if you push him further toward quarantine, this coalition collapses. The moderate voices lose credibility. The hardliners win. Understand? Kale understood perfectly. He had one chance to convince a being older than human civilization that humanity deserved a seat at the table. When? He asked. Tonight, Vokresh said. In the Archive of Sorrows. Kale recognized the name. It was where the Conclave kept records of extinct civilizations. Of all the species that had failed to survive the tests of time. Dramatic choice of venue, he muttered. Torquist's choice, Quinn said. He wants you to understand what's at stake. The Archive of Sorrows. The Archive of Sorrows occupied the oldest section of the Conclave station, carved into the same neutron star fragment as the council chamber. But where the chamber spoke of power and judgment, the archive whispered of loss. Kale walked alone through corridors lined with crystalline memory cores, each one containing the complete history of a dead civilization. According to the directory, the archive held records of 47,000 extinct species. Some destroyed by war, others by plague, many by their own hubris. He found Torquist in the Hall of Quick Flames, where civilizations that had burned bright and fast were commemorated. The Velkrins stood before a particular display, all 6 arms folded in a gesture of mourning. The Zithani, Torquist said without turning. They discovered faster-than-light travel, colonized 100 worlds, and declared themselves masters of the stars. All in 3,000 years. Their empire lasted 200 years before internal conflicts tore it apart. By year 210 they were extinct. Kale approached carefully. You brought me here to show me humanity's future? I brought you here to show you the pattern. Torquist finally turned, and Kale saw something in the ancient being's eyes he hadn't expected. Not hatred, but profound sadness. The Zithani. The Kresh. The infinite harmony. The dancing suns. 47 species in this hall alone, all defined by the same characteristics. Rapid technological advancement, aggressive expansion, absolute certainty in their own exceptionalism. And all dead, Kale said quietly. All dead, Torquist confirmed. I've lived long enough to watch 12 species follow this pattern. I was young when the Kresh burned bright. I advised caution, partnership, integration. The Conclave ignored me. Within 800 years, the Kresh had sparked a war that sterilized 17 systems. Do you understand, Ambassador Thorn? I've been exactly where you are now. I've made your arguments. I've believed in the potential of young, dynamic species. And I've watched them destroy themselves and take others with them. Kale felt the weight of those millennia pressing down on the conversation. So you see us heading toward the same fate. I see you sprinting toward it, Torquus replied. 200 years, Ambassador. In the cosmic timescale, you're infants. Dangerous infants with fusion weapons and quantum drives. Then why meet me here? Kale asked. If you're certain we're doomed, why not just vote for quarantine and be done with it? Torquus moved through the hall, gesturing to different displays. Because I've also lived long enough to see the cost of excessive caution. The conclave nearly died 3 times in the first million years. Twice from internal stagnation, once from external invasion. Each time we survived because someone broke our rules, challenged our assumptions, forced us to adapt. He stopped before a display that showed a species Kale didn't recognize, beings of flowing energy contained in crystalline matrices. The luminal. They were established conclave members when I was young. Conservative, careful, absolutely dedicated to stability. When the void plague emerged, they refused to experiment with untested treatments. Refused to authorize emergency research protocols. They died with perfect adherence to procedure. Kale studied the memorial. You're saying there's a balance we haven't found. I'm saying I don't know if that balance exists, Torquus admitted, and the honesty in his voice was startling. The other ambassadors think I'm certain. They see me as the voice of ancient wisdom, unwavering in my convictions. The truth? I'm terrified. Terrified that integrating humanity will lead to chaos and destruction. Terrified that rejecting humanity will leave us too rigid to survive what's coming. After 4,000 years, Ambassador Thorn, I'm finally uncertain. Kale absorbed this, realizing he was seeing past the political persona to something more vulnerable. The others told me you're the key vote. That if you support temporary integration, the moderates can pass it. They're correct. Torquus turned his full attention to Kale. So convince me. Not with grand speeches about human potential or dire warnings about the invasion fleet. Those arguments I've already considered. Convince me of something I haven't thought of in 4,000 years of service. Kale walked slowly through the hall, past the memorials to dead civilizations, thinking about what he could possibly say that would be new to a being this old. Finally, he stopped before an empty pedestal, one of many scattered through the archive, waiting for civilizations that hadn't yet fallen. You said you've watched 12 species like humanity destroy themselves, Kale began. But what if the pattern isn't that rapid evolution leads to extinction? What if the pattern is that rapid evolution without partnership leads to extinction? Torquus's arms moved in a gesture Kale couldn't interpret. Explain. The Zithani, the Kresh, the others you mentioned, did any of them have what we have? A conclave trying to integrate them, mentor them, slow them down enough to avoid catastrophe? Or were they alone, burning bright with no one to temper the flame? Some had partners, Torquus said. Alliance networks, trading coalitions. But not the conclave, Kale pressed. Not a structure specifically designed to preserve stability and prevent exactly the kind of self-destruction you're describing. You're comparing us to species that had no institutional break on their expansion. We do. You. Torquus was silent for a long moment. You're suggesting the conclave itself changes the pattern. I'm suggesting we've never had a chance to find out, Kale said. Every species you've described faced their trials alone or with peers equally chaotic. We're asking to face ours with the guidance of the most stable, most ancient governmental structure in known space. That's never been tried before. Because we've never allowed it, Torquus acknowledged. Exactly. You've been protecting the conclave from species like ours. But what if you should be protecting species like ours from ourselves? What if that's the evolution the conclave needs? Not just preventing wars between established members, but actively mentoring young species through their dangerous phases. Kale gestured to the empty pedestals around them. You could fill these with humanity's memorial. Or you could prove that the conclave can do something it's never done before, save a species from the pattern instead of just documenting their failure. Torquus stood perfectly still, all 6 arms frozen in contemplation. Minutes passed in silence. Finally he moved toward the exit. The vote is in 6 hours, he said. I will consider what you've said. That's all I ask, Kale replied. Torquus paused at the doorway. Ambassador Thorn? I hope you're right. But if you're wrong, if humanity becomes another memorial in this hall, I will spend the rest of my life knowing I made the mistake that destroyed you. Then I'll spend however long we have proving you made the right choice, Kale said. Epilogue. The Obsidian Conclave reconvened precisely 48 hours after the recess. Kale stood once more on the speaker's platform, Maya beside him this time as Arbiter Zexilian called for the vote. The proposal: grant humanity emergency integration status for the duration of the external threat. Full participation in defense planning, suspended judgment on territorial violations, formal review to follow crisis resolution. Those in favor? Kale held his breath. 8 hands, appendages, energy fields and other forms of affirmation rose. Then slowly Torquist lifted all 6 of his arms. 9 votes became 12 as the moderate coalition held. The measure passed. Then it is decided, Zexilian declared. Ambassador Thorne, humanity is granted provisional partnership. May you prove worthy of our trust. As Kale accepted the decision, he looked out at the assembled ambassadors, this collection of ancient, powerful, frightened beings who had chosen to take a chance on a species barely out of its cradle. Outside, beyond the station's walls, an unknown fleet approached. But inside, for the first time in 200 years, humanity had found allies willing to face that darkness together. The council chamber had become a battlefield of words. And somehow humanity had won. But the real battle was yet to come.